Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is finally hitting theaters. Here's my drive time review. Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is just okay. Well, at least I thought. It's super long. It felt like it was going nowhere. And if you know the story, it's about two actors. Leonardo DiCaprio is like a Western star who is now having a nervous breakdown because he feels like his career is over. And Brad Pitt plays his stuntman. And he's kind of his cheerleader, saying, oh, don't, think that way. You're a star. You just have to get back on your feet. And that's pretty much it. There's no real plot, I don't think. You're just waiting to find out, okay, how is Leonardo DiCaprio's Rick Dalton going to deal with this breakdown that he's having. And in the background, you have his next door neighbor, who is Sharon Tate, who's married to Roman Polanski. And I don't know how I feel about that man, if you know the history. But anyway, so he's not in the film as much. He has, I don't believe he has any dialogue. He just pretty much is the side piece for Sharon Tate, played by Margot Robbie. And Margot Robbie does have lines in this movie. I don't know where this idea that she had no lines in the movie came about. Some reporter in Europe, I think at Cannes, asked her, or asked Quentin and Margot about why she wasn't given lines. And I'm thinking, well, that's not accurate when I saw the film. But she probably meant she didn't have much to do. There's a lot of time spent on Sharon Tate's character, and I think there's a lot of miscellaneous sequences that really didn't have any purpose to it, except maybe what I think Tarantino was going for was trying to show who this person was. And if you know the history behind the film, real life history, Hollywood history, Sharon Tate is the one who was murdered by the Charles Manson gang. And so if you don't have any knowledge of that, which I'm sure I don't know who would not have knowledge of that, maybe the younger kids, you wouldn't know where this film is going to. But if you have that knowledge, you'll see there's some drama that you can see leading up to those events, and you're kind of dreading it because you don't want to see those tragic events unfurl on the big screen. And there's plenty of nostalgia in the movie. You'll see Los Angeles in the late 1960s. The cars are really cool. There's some cool driving scenes, but of course you're thinking, why can't we just move on? This movie's 2.5 hours. So those familiar with Hollywood will get a kick out of some of the commentary made in the movie about that time. And there's, of course, given Quentin Tarantino, there's a lot of witty dialogue. There's a lot of back and forth between actors, and usually I get bored at those scenes, but not here. A lot of times in the movie, I kept asking myself, where is this going? It just seemed there was a lot of random sequences, and I'll give you an example of one. So Sharon Tate leaves her home in her, I think it's a Porsche, one of those nice fancy cars. So yeah, it looks great, her getting in her car. There's a lot of driving in the movie, and a lot of classic cars, so I'm sure he had fun with that. But again, you're like, okay, that's nice, let's move on. So she gets in her car, she drives, we see her driving through Beverly Hills. She gets to Westwood. They used to be like a mecca in Hollywood. So she gets out of her car, she walks to the store, she buys a book, she walks by the movie theater where one of her movies is playing, and she's contemplating, should I go in to see it, blah, blah, blah. Then she asked the box office attendant how much. They said 75 cents. Those were the good old days. What is it up to now? $14 here in Los Angeles? Ridiculous. But she didn't want to pay, so she asked the box office worker, hey, I'm in the movie. Do you think you can let me in? And I'm like, really? 75 cents? I don't know what that time is, 69, or is it 68? If that was a lot of money, I don't know. But okay, so then she goes in the movie. So there's a couple of scenes of her watching the movie. She's reacting to the crowd. watching her, she's loving it. And so that's probably about 10 minutes. So I'm thinking, really? The movie is over 2.5 hours, or 2.5 hours. So it's pretty long. I couldn't wait till it ended. I was a little tired. I must say I wasn't in the best mood. So I just wanted it to be over and done with. And I wanted to get to the part how they were going to handle where they were going with these Charles Manson people. He's actually in the film just a little bit. But there's a lot more about his followers, the hippies, and in the script they keep referring to these darn stupid hippies, and I thought that was funny. And even though it was a little long and sometimes a little boring, I mean, I enjoyed it. I think all the performances were really solid. It was really, really nice to see Brad Pitt again on the big screen. I've missed him. Where have you been? I know he's been dealing with his own personal things, so it was nice seeing him. And the chemistry between him and Leonardo DiCaprio was really, really good. I could just watch them the whole time and I wouldn't be bothered by it. Margot Robbie, solid performance, although, her dialogue was limited. I think she was there for the purpose of showing audiences who this person was, this actress who had a tragic ending. It's horrible how she died. She was pregnant at the time. I think she was 9 months along when these Charles Manson followers went in and killed her and a group of people in her house. And it's just hideous. And I was a little worried going into the movie what that was going to be like, because it's such a horror of a story. Once again, Quentin Tarantino rewrites history. He loves doing that. And sometimes we don't mind it. In Glorious Bastards, he kicked some Nazi ass, burned them up in a movie theater, which is always a good thing. I mean, it's just movies. We're not talking humans. I mean, it's terrible to do it to another human, but given what the Nazis did, we'll let it slide. And then in Django Unchained, he took revenge on the slave owners. And again, there were evil people that did some horrible things to other humans. And, we can't complain either. So in this one, I would say completing his trilogy of revenge stories, he gives you a different twist at the end. And the twist leaves you with your mouth open because the violence was horrific. And not against the victims that in real life, that happened to the victims in real life, but he takes that out on the Manson followers. And it's pretty brutal. And I won't say who did it, but I mean, at first you want to cheer, and then when it gets really graphic, you're like, oh man, and that was the reaction in the movie theater. Everyone was like, oh shit. So if you're a Quentin Tarantino fan, this is probably right up your alley. But just be warned, it's a little long, and you'll feel it towards the middle. But then when you get to the third act, it kind of moves along really fast, and then he'll shock you, like he always does. And so there's plenty of that. So it's very typical. And so I like to say this is a trilogy, his revenge trilogy. You'll see him enact some brutal justice to some of these people that probably should have deserved it. So let me know what you thought about the movie in the comments below.